Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar entitled Construction Project Strategies During COVID-19. My name is Debbie Wood, and I'll be your moderator for today's program. Today's session is being presented by Andrew Hipolit. Andy has over 30 years of extensive experience in planning, design, and inspection of municipal, residential, and commercial projects. He is currently the borough engineer for Tenafly, New Providence, and Montvale, New Jersey. He has successfully secured over $10 million in municipal aid funds from the New Jersey Department of Transportation Trust Fund for various projects. Andy is a professional engineer licensed in New Jersey, New York, and Delaware. And he is also a professional planner, certified municipal engineer, floodplain manager, and public works manager. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Andrew Hipolit.
Thanks, Debbie. So I want to start today with just the basic COVID-19 effects and the specific executive orders that affected construction in the state of New Jersey. The three orders are Executive Order 107, which basically stopped all construction except for, basically utility projects and things that were as need. The Governor's Executive Order 136 delayed all DEP permits, and Governor's Order 142 basically opened up all construction past essential projects. So today we're going to cover three areas on the effects of the project. The three areas that were affected were grants and the processing and execution and giving out of grant monies, DEP permits, the lack of staff there, and the delays and paused deadlines for approvals, and construction, and specifically the cost of construction and how the pandemic affected costs from 2019 to 2020. So the first area we're going to start in is grants. So grant opportunities, the COVID-19 pandemic affected the ability of government agencies really to process grants, both state and county agencies. Affected grants would include the DOT local aid grants, community development block grants, county open space grants, Green Acres grants, and it has definitely affected the reimbursement of FEMA monies to municipalities for costs that they've incurred during COVID-19. Most grant agencies have extended their deadlines. For instance, DOT local aid has extended their deadline to July 1st of this year. So right now you should be in the process of preparing your grant applications, getting your resolutions passed, and submitting them before July 1st. Other grants are really county specific. You need to contact your county to find out when the deadline was extended to. If you don't know how to do that, again, you can call us and I'll tell you who you can call later on to do that. So protect your funding. COVID-19, major costs, both nationwide, countywide, statewide. What has happened is counties and states are struggling for funding. Their budgets are under significant stress due to COVID-19, the cost that it's cost them. So they're looking backwards in 2019, 18, and 17, or even further back to see if you have grant monies you haven't spent. If you have not spent them, they may take them back. So you may end up losing funding for your municipality because you haven't spent it and you haven't done certain things to secure that funding. Unspent grants, in our opinion, without certain things happening, will be taken back. So how do you protect it? What's your actions? If you're a mayor and council and you want to protect prior year grants, you need to do basically three things. You need a grant agreement between you and the agency who issued you the grant. Very important, should be signed, should be executed by mayor and council, and executed by the agency that gave it to you. The second portion, the design contract, you should have awarded a design contract and potentially have your professional work on the contract or be working on it currently now, or it can be at risk. And the last thing is to have a very detailed schedule. That schedule should go from where you executed your grant to what your design deadline is, to what your bidding timeframe is, to the actual council meeting you're going to award it, and then the construction timeframe. Usually that timeframe is 3 to 6 months. That will help secure your grant funding and not lose what we call prior year grants. Second, preparing for the future. We learned a lot during Hurricane Sandy. And Hurricane Sandy, the federal government and the state came out with what we call shovel-ready project funding. They went to municipalities and said, if you have projects that are ready to go to construction, we want to give you free money, free grants, not matching grants to do that work. What had happened was a lot of municipalities wanted to do projects, but didn't have shovel-ready projects available. What's a shovel-ready project? Simply, you've awarded an engineering design, your engineer worked on the project, completed it, has all the documents, plans, and specifications ready for public bidding, waiting for shovel-ready project funding to become available. That is very important. If it is available, the projects the federal government and state is looking to do is bridge projects, downtown streetscape projects, projects that can convert a site to a COVID-ready testing center. They're looking for reconstruction projects of anything from utilities to roadways. They want projects that are going to make an impact in your community and make the impact literally in 2020. If you were to get the shovel-ready project money in 2021, they want the impact in 2021. The award conditions usually are completing the project within the year you receive the money, unless it's a very long project like a bridge reconstruction where you're looking at 12 to 18 months. It can span multiple years, but needs a schedule and you need to follow it. So right now, under COVID-19, there's actually a grant available out there. The US EDA has a Public Works and Economic Adjustment Assistance Program grant. There is no deadline. The deadline is when the funding runs out, the grant is over. The award amounts could be as low as $100,000 up to $30 million, which is a significant award amount. It is matching. It can be 0% if you're an economic distressed community or up to 20% for a normal community. Types of projects include, and they're specific, they want resiliency in a COVID-19 pandemic or the next one that may come, where you improve Wi-Fi in your downtown for businesses and restaurants to operate during a pandemic, such as curbside pickup, so you would improve your Wi-Fi, converting or having a park be convertible for COVID or the next COVID testing site, or have an area next to a hospital where you can convert it to set up a MASH tent. So if the hospital in your community is overwhelmed, they can use that site for a MASH tent and then convert it back to a park or some other use afterwards. So they're looking for projects that make you resilient. It also extends to planning type projects. So if you want to use monies for planning to plan your entire community for the next pandemic or next disaster that may happen, because they're going to happen, you could apply for a grant to do that and do it for literally what they call resiliency planning and say, if we were to have this disaster, this pandemic, this whatever it may be, our community can survive it, and this is the plan to do that. So they are funding it. We'd encourage you to do it. I will tell you later on if you want to use Mazer, who can do that for you. Next topic, which is always a tough one, DEP. DEP under Executive Order 136 is now allowed to pause or delay the time frame they have to act on any permits you submit to them. That would include wetlands, stream encroachment, flood hazard permits. What does that mean? The DEP is understaffed generally. Now they're significantly understaffed because they're working rotating schedules. They're not holding pre-application meetings in person, as nobody's holding in-person meetings. Zoom meetings and or Teams meetings or a conference call are hard to get with the DEP. So even if you can get a pre-application meeting, it's very hard to have one or hold one. If you are to get one and submit your permit, what then happens is they have no time to process it. They're going to process it in whatever time they think is necessary to evaluate the environmental impacts of your project and determine whether they should or should not approve it without a time frame. What does that mean for your construction? Simply, it means delays. It's going to delay your project. Most likely, if you have a 2020 construction project that needs a DEP permit, I would pretty much tell you you're probably going to be doing it in 2021. It is painful. It is a process that all municipalities are struggling with. It's something we have to live under until Executive Order 136 is rescinded. Construction. So this is probably the biggest part of the presentation with respect to a lot of things we've heard or thought versus what is actually happening. So the effects of COVID-19 on construction projects, there's really four main areas. The first area is price comparison from 2019 to 2020. What I thought, what my clients thought, and what everybody thought was COVID-19, disaster, fuel prices tanking, the economy, unemployment skyrocketing, prices are going to be awesome. We're going to bid our projects and get these great prices. Simply, that's not what we're seeing. I will show you on the upcoming slides that we're seeing basically the same type of pricing, similar to or slightly lower than 2019, but it's not a windfall. people remember back in the early 2000s, we had a really bad economy in 2009 and prices took a dramatic drop. That is not what's happening here, at least right now it's not. I'll get into that in the next slides. Reduced costs, projects do have reduced costs. Right now, there's not a lot of traffic, not a lot of people on the streets. There's a lot of open spaces. So things like mobilization, storing of equipment, police traffic directors, or even traffic directors in general, it's less costly right now. So projects do have a reduced cost in that area. The other area which can be significant is fuel and asphalt price adjustment. Not everybody knows what that is, but there's a state number that allows asphalt and fuel prices to be adjusted down or up, depending on the cost of asphalt and oil that they determine based on a monthly rolling schedule. We're seeing that trend downward. About 4 or 5 years ago, we saw it trending upward and it became a detriment to jobs. Now that it's trending downward, we are now including it in our projects because municipalities can get the savings as fuel prices change month to month. As they go down, the projects will become cheaper. A real big advantage of the COVID-19 impact is number of bidders. A year ago this time, we saw 2 to 4 bidders per project. Currently, right now, we're seeing 8 to 10, or in some cases more than that. More bidders, more competition, better pricing. Here's probably my favorite slide. This is in a direct comparison between 2019 and 2020. I picked out 3 projects that were similar size in the same community. The first one was the NJDOT local aid grant Tenafly in 2019, and another one in 2020. The Riverside Cooperative in Bergen County in 2019, and the Riverside Cooperative in 2020, and the Montvale Road Program in 2019 and 2020. If you look at the sheet and look at the asphalt price per ton, Tenafly $82 a ton in 19, $82.50 in 20. It actually went up 50 cents. Riverside Cooperative, $78.74 in 19, $77 in 2020. A savings, but not significant. Montvale was $80 in 19 and $80 in 2020. And the same thing with the milling. Tenafly $475 versus $375. Riverside Cooperative $435 versus $404. So we saw some savings there. And Montvale $425 and $425. My clients, myself included, and our staff, we believe that in 19 we had X pricing, and in 20 it would be significantly lower than X. That's not what happened. Granted, the overall price of the jobs did go down, which is a positive for the municipalities, because things like traffic control and mobilization and site storage of materials, transportation of materials to the site, some of those things did go down. But similar to our business and other businesses, the cost of everyday salaries still went up, the cost of insurance still went up. So those costs have offset increases. So basically what we're now telling our clients based on actual data is that you should kind of assume that your 2020 projects will be similar to what happened in 2019. The next slide gives you 6 more projects that bid between January 2020 and May 2020. 5 of them, Morris County Co-op, Toms River Board of Ed, Ramsey Cooperative, the Montvale DOT project, and the Roselle Road Improvement project are very similar to the 6 projects that were on the previous slide, saying that the 2019 prices for these jobs are similar in 2020. If you look in the upper right corner, if you can see my mouse, the Edison job, there we go, $57 a ton. So maybe a May bid is starting to show a reflection of a new tonnage price for asphalt. I don't want to get your hopes up too high. What I will tell you is the overall price of the Edison job, still comparatively to 2019, was about the same. This specific contractor, he basically bid other items higher, like concrete, roadway excavation. He kind of put his cards in those baskets and said, hey, $57 a ton is good for me. I'm going to weight the job differently. So the overall price still was consistent with what they bid in 2019. So on these 2 slides, and you look back for a second, if I can leave you with one thing. As a mayor and council, an engineer, somebody working on these projects, somebody bidding for these projects, look at your 2019 numbers and say, that's probably what my results in 2020 are going to be. That's what we're seeing. And these are some pretty large jobs that are showing those results. And where do we go from that? Construction strategies. What we believe should be done at this point, because as oil prices go down, those prices on those prior slides could change significantly and the towns could get more benefit. How do you show that benefit other than to pass a change order? And a change order on a project is just a pain for auditors. It causes all kinds of other proofs. It causes sometimes advertising for the mayor and council. The best way to do it is to add alternates in your job. We're recommending at least 1 or 2 alternates, in most cases 2. If you can add 3 or 4, great. Add an extra road, add more area to your park if it's a park project. If you're doing a bridge project, improve the approaches better. If you're looking at a project that does something in your downtown, like a sidewalk project, have a baseline number for concrete sidewalk and add like another 20% in an alternate. You want to take advantage of the better pricing if it comes. We believe it's going to come. Right now, for planning purposes, use your 19 numbers, but plan for the future. And that's a great strategy for you to use. So how can Mazer help? If you are a Mazer client or if you're not a Mazer client, either way, this is a list of pretty much all of our services. We can cover you from bridge design to roadway design, to geotech, grants, funding, drains design, utilities. Basically, we have all the services. We're willing to engage you in a conversation to see if we can be a help to you or not. They're the services. The people you would call would be as follows. I broke New Jersey into 4 regions. Paul Sturbins will handle Western New Jersey. Jim Priolo handles Central New Jersey, which is out of our Red Bank office. Tim Kernan handles Southern New Jersey out of our Egg Harbor office. I handle Northern New Jersey out of the Mount Arlington office. Chelsea Howard is the person I referred to earlier about grants. She does our grant and funding services, and she can help you with any of your grant needs. What I'll say what Kelsey is, she has a revolving list of clients she keeps adding to, and every time a grant comes out, like the EDA grant, she will notify you. If you want to call her, utilize your services, you can. If you just want to know about the grant, you can do that too. It kind of gives you a great option. On this slide, there's a cell phone number and an email for all of us. We welcome you to use our cell phones or our emails. At the bottom of the screen is the main number for Mazer. You can use that also. You may be a client that has a different rep other than us. You could call them too. They'll have this PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint will be available in long form. So that takes us to our question and answer session. If you want the long version of the presentation, you could email dwood@mazerconsulting.com. There is actually a long version, which is more detailed than me sitting in front of you and talking about it. And then obviously you can email me directly with any questions, but I'm going to now go to Debbie. Debbie, do we have any questions?
Okay, Andy, it looks like Bill is asking for additional clarification on why the Edison bid was significantly lower than all the others on the additional bidding items.
So Bill, that's a really good question. I spoke to the Edison contractor directly. His price per ton from the plant he's going to use, they gave him a pretty low number. He added his markup on it. He feels that he can put the asphalt down at the tonnage on there successfully for $57 a ton. But as I said earlier, if you go back and look at his bid, there are other items in that bid, such as his concrete items, which are much higher than some of the other bids. He's putting a lot of weight because he can on those other items where he thinks if he's going to get an extra or he's going to get a change order, he'll make his money there, because if he gets an extra or a change order, that's where he'll make his money. We don't believe that'll happen because of the way we structure our bids, but that's really where his head was when he bid $57. Next question.
Okay, Karen is asking if you can elaborate on the time it might take to get NJDEP permitting approved.
I can elaborate on it, but it's a difficult question. The NJDEP is using Governor Murphy's order to not have any time frame or pause the time to act on permits. It's frustrating for municipalities. It's frustrating for us, your engineer, in that we submit a permit, it sits and sits and sits with no result. What we can do for you at Mazer is we literally will make weekly calls. We literally will email the reviewer to try to get a deadline, to try to get you some time frame that they'll act on it. The one bit of hope is we are a municipal agency or government agency. We're not a private developer. So we can use our municipal agency status to get them to bring it closer to the top. But as I said earlier, if you need DEP permits and you're submitting them now in 2020, I would count that you're going to be working on that project in 2021. I wouldn't stop working on the project. I'd keep it moving forward, because if you don't, then you'll look at 2022.
And it looks like our last question is from Doug, who would like to know, on the US EDA Public Works Grant, do you know if anyone has received this grant to date?
So really good question, Doug. As far as I know, nobody has received the grant. I know people have submitted for the grant. I will just reiterate that this grant can be crucial for a municipality, and that if you want to plan resiliency for your community for the next pandemic, whatever it may be, it could even be the next hurricane, because it kind of would cover you for that too. Use this grant to both either get monies for planning it or to get monies for constructing things in your town that make your town adaptable to something like your downtown shut down and everybody's got to work from home. Or we're going to now create a specific testing site in town, but when it's not a testing site, we'll use it as a park, we'll use it as a field, we'll use it as a passive recreation area, whatever it may be. And as I said before, I guess the last thing would be, if you have a hospital in your community, which a lot of communities do, maybe next to your hospital have an area that can be a park or can be a parking area that can be converted into like a MASH tent setup. So what they'll do is you'll design it, you'll build it, the hospital can use that area to create a MASH tent type situation if in fact the hospital is full, so people don't get turned away. So I hope that answers everybody's questions. I really appreciate everybody staying on for 20 minutes. I'd like to thank Debbie Wood for all the time she put into this presentation, and just, she's amazing. And without her, I wouldn't have much going on here. I'd be kind of useless, but that is what it is. I don't know if you have any other questions. You can email them again, Debbie Wood at majorconsulting.com, or you can email them to me at ahipolit at majorconsulting.com. I really thank you for attending and hope you have a great day.